Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm making a video that I really was hoping I would never have to make, and that is the offseason preview for my favorite team, the Milwaukee Bucks. Rocking the cap, rocking the DiVincenzo jersey. I was rocking it all game, and Dante had a great game for us today, but just wasn't enough there. I think I will talk about the game a little bit too. Uh, Budenholzer is the first name that came into my mind to talk about. So we'll talk about some decisions he made. I think that it was really impressive that the Bucks got off to great starts to start both the first and the second halves, because that just shows that Bud can get it the most out of his players. And quite honestly, going into this offseason, Budenholzer is getting paid a lot. He won Coach of the Year 2 years ago. He was runner up this year, I believe. Maybe it was third, but he was in the top three. He has led this team to the best regular season record each of the past 2 years. And like I said, he's owed a lot of money. And money's kind of a big deal right now with the coronavirus. People are definitely trying not to spend as much money as they usually would in the NBA, is what the rumors are. So I don't think there's any way that Bud gets paid. I know I was calling for him to get fired a few days ago, but he made the adjustment. He played Middleton for bigger minutes. Obviously, it was too little, too late, but he at least showed that in the future he'll be ready to admit that, okay, I'm not always going to be right, and sometimes I need to make adjustments and make changes to what I want to do in order to help my team win. And that's what we need from him. Um, I just hope that everything works out with him, because he's a really good regular season coach, and if he can translate that and keep that winning culture that he's brought to Milwaukee, because we definitely made a huge jump when he came. Started winning way more games. Giannis took a step forward. Chris took a step forward. Uh, Dante, he developed him great in his rookie year, and now in his second season, he's an impact player. I think that Coach Bud is a really good coach. Obviously, there's a few things that are a problem. He falls in love with his system too much. We saw it in this series with Marvin Williams playing drop coverage in the pick and roll. That's not who Marvin is. If you've got him playing out there as a five, the whole advantage of that is that he's a switchable guy who can guard close to every position. He's a guy that you can have switching ball screens, but we weren't able to take advantage of that because Bud had him playing drop coverage like he was Brooke Lopez or something, where this guy's not the shot blocker, not nearly the shot blocker that Lopez is. So it would have been better if he could have made scheme adjustments like that. And the offense, don't get me started on the offense. It looked terrible today. There was just no movement. Bledsoe, as much as it pains me to say this, because I love his defense and I love his energy, and I think that when he's on, he's an unstoppable force getting to the basket, and he's really fun to watch when he's on like that, because his straight line drives are just so entertaining to just see a little guy muscle past everyone like that. But he just really doesn't look like a point guard of the future. He doesn't look like, it doesn't seem like that there's any way that he can be the starting point guard of this team next season, and it's going to be hard to find another guy who can start, but this is the third year in a row now where he kind of disappeared in the playoffs. I mean, today he was, what, 2 for 11, 2 for 12? Had a couple turnovers. Obviously, his defense is incredible, but I did have a few nitpicks with him in this game. A few of my buddies that I was talking to during the game, shout out to my friends, by the way, because they are huge Bucks fans, and I'd love to have them in one of these videos to talk with me about the Bucks, because they've all got some pretty interesting thoughts on what this team can do moving forward, and the kind of things that we need to work on. So I'd love to have them in one of these videos with me, have a little dialogue in there with one of those guys, but um, I was talking to them about it, and they were saying, "Geez, Lopez needs to get up on these screens." And I said, "Well, no, that's what the Bucks are gonna do. They're gonna play the drop coverage. Budenholzer loves it. He has not shied away from it at all. To a fault, maybe, as I said with the whole Marvin Williams thing earlier, but uh, that's where Bledsoe could have been a bit better on defense. In that drop coverage, it's imperative that the guy guarding the ball handler in the pick and roll action is able to fight over the screen. And Bledsoe had some trouble getting over screens today. And usually that's something he's pretty good at, getting skinny and getting over those screens. And maybe that was in effect of Bam Adebayo just being really, really good at setting screens and Goran Dragic being really, really good at getting separation off of those screens. But I thought that Bledsoe could have done a better job in that area. But other than that, obviously, we know this guy's a pit bull. He's Kyle Lowry, B version, just as a little strong guy who's good defender, can get to the rim. Obviously, the shooting's nowhere near where Lowry's is, but maybe Bledsoe makes some improvements this offseason, but he's pretty much been the same player ever since the Bucks traded for him, so I'm not counting on it. And if he doesn't make improvements, he's not a championship-level point guard. Is that point guard out there? I'm not sure. I mean, like I said before, Eric Bledsoe is really, really good, and he doesn't get enough credit for being really good. But the playoff stuff is definitely a problem. And for us to move on from him, we need to find an upgrade. And the question really for me is that upgrade out there? Bledsoe, I'd say, is right around the 12th or 13th best point guard in the NBA. A guy who is also in that area is Malcolm Brogdon, who had a terrific playoff series for the Pacers against the same Miami Heat team that Bledsoe really struggled against. So that's not a great look considering we let that guy walk this offseason when we had him as a restricted free agent and could have kept him around. That hurts every time I think about it. Obviously his skill set does interfere with Middleton and Giannis's, and he wanted to have his own team where he was the primary ball handler, but this would have been just a situation where we could have just used another ball handler. I mean, Malcolm Brogdon as your tertiary ball handler, that's pretty incredible because that guy is a really good playmaker. He can score. He's an efficient player, but yeah, he's obviously not on this team anymore. So who are some other guys we could look at as upgrades over Eric Bledsoe? One guy that kind of came into my head, obviously, and this is the one we're going to hear the most about, is Chris Paul, CP3, the point god. The contract is enormous, and he played so spectacular in the playoffs that I don't think that there's any way that the Bucks are going to be able to get this trade done without including Dante DiVincenzo. And I really, really like Dante. I think that he's a valuable piece of this team's future. Okay, before I talk about any of this trade stuff, we're going to get into the different. I guess okay. I need to talk about the game a little more. Then we'll get into the offseason stuff. Middleton struggled tonight. I think that a big part of that was just that the Heat defense was able to key in on him because the Bucks just didn't have enough weapons out on the floor that could threaten the Heat defense to score. And so the Heat were really able to just key in on Chris and not let him do what he wants to do on offense, not let him get to his spots, not let him get his shots, and that just really, really hurt him. I think he finished with close to 25 points, but it was a pretty empty 25 where it just didn't really feel like it was the kind of effort that we got from him in game 4. But I think Chris Middleton is great. I think he's a around the 25th best player in the NBA. And he's a really, really good second option, I think. I don't have any problem with Chris Middleton. But getting back to the game, uh, I think that's something that the Bucks could have looked to do a little bit more was go back to that pick and roll with Middleton and a smaller guy who had Dragic slash Hero since Robinson guarding him, and they just never went to that. And that was a matchup that the Bucks really took advantage of in Game 4, and I would have just loved to see them try to do it just a few more times in Game 5 tonight, and they just really didn't do it at all. And there's just so many what ifs from this game. What if Brook Lopez looked great in the fourth quarter? What if we try getting him the ball sooner? What if Chris Middleton and Dante DiVincenzo stay out of foul trouble and we can just keep up that defensive intensity? What if Bledsoe doesn't go 2 for 12 from the field and he knocks down some of those easy layups he was getting and just blowing, knocks down some of those wide open three-pointers that the Heat defense was surrendering to him because they didn't view him as a threat? What if Jay Crowder doesn't become Steph Curry in this series and knock down every single three? What if at the end of Game 2, the Bucks end up being the beneficiary of a few of those tight calls? Obviously, in this game, you've got a couple more of those close calls. What if the Lopez block is overturned and it's called a block? What if that Tyler Hero call is not overturned and they call it a foul? There's just so many what ifs in this series, and I feel like it was so much closer than the 4-1 would indicate. Just frustrating as a Bucks fan. We'll get into the offseason stuff now. I think I've talked enough about that game and expressed my frustrations, what I thought we could have done a bit better. Wesley Matthews, I think, could have been on the floor a bit more. Pat Connaughton just probably should have been cut out of the rotation. I don't know why we didn't give Sterling Brown some run. I think that he just didn't get enough of a chance in these past couple of years, and that's something with Budenholzer just playing his guys the entire season. Like, he didn't give those guys a chance to develop, guys like Sterling Brown and DJ Wilson. They didn't have a chance to become rotational players that are getting regular touches. And that might have hurt the Bucks because they just didn't have any more options in the playoffs. When this Heat team started shutting down what the Bucks love to do, they didn't have any secondary and tertiary options that they could go to. So that is disappointing. But yeah, getting into the offseason stuff. There's a few different paths that this team can take, and all of them are very related to Giannis' decision. Number one path, Giannis signs the supermax. In this case, I think the team continues to develop Dante DiVincenzo. Maybe we look for an Eric Bledsoe trade and try to see if maybe a team will give up a lottery pick for him. If somebody would do that, absolutely, sign me up. I'll take a lottery pick for Eric Bledsoe. That's perfect. But I don't think any team's going to do that at this point. So I think that if Giannis signs the Supermax, we'll most likely run it back next year. That would give us Giannis would be under contract for 6 seasons then, including next year. So 6 seasons to put together a championship caliber team. That's plenty of time. We wouldn't have to rush into making some trade to blow up our young core to get a superstar. And by our young core, I mean Dante DiVincenzo, because he's our only young piece, really. What else is there to say about that? If Giannis does that, I think that increases the likelihood that we bring back Wesley Matthews. And I think bringing back Wesley Matthews is actually something the Bucks should do, no matter what Giannis does. The second option for Giannis is don't sign the Supermax, and the Bucks decide that they can be a championship level team, and they go all in on next season, and make a trade for a star. I don't know. This might be the least likely of the three scenarios that I'm going to point out. Actually, it might be more likely than the third. Actually, I think there are four scenarios. This is either the third or fourth most likely. So either the first or second least likely. So just because there's not many stars that are on the market for a trade. Chris Paul is obviously going to be the big name in rumors, and there's no way that we get him without trading Dante DiVincenzo, which I really, really don't love the idea of. But if we need to win a championship next year, so be it. Get Chris Paul, go all in on next season, and try to win that chip to convince Giannis to re-sign. Because the last time we had a player of his caliber in Milwaukee was 50 years ago with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I wouldn't bet on the Bucks getting another guy at Giannis's level for the next 50 years. So, trying to convince Giannis to re-sign next offseason, if he doesn't this offseason, is absolutely necessary. And to do that, we need to be as successful as possible next year if Giannis doesn't sign that supermax this offseason. And to do that, we'd have to acquire that star. Some other names that my buddies were throwing around were other guys that have been in some trade rumors, guys like Victor Oladipo, Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday, CJ McCollum. I think that the most likely of those would probably be Victor. Although who knows if the Pacers would want to make a deal with the Bucks, because they seem to consider themselves as Eastern Conference Finals level team. So who knows if they want to make a rival even stronger. So maybe they don't make a trade of Victor Oladipo. So that probably makes Holiday the most likely trade target. So what are we giving up to get Holiday? Probably Bledsoe, DiVincenzo. I don't even know. And why would the Pelicans do that? Obviously, they'd have to really like Dante in the 24th pick. I just don't see it there. If they're going to get a star, it's got to be Chris Paul, and I don't even know if we have enough to get Chris Paul. I feel like we could be outbid by a team like the Magic or the Knicks if they try to make a trade, or even the Lakers. Like, obviously, Dante DiVincenzo and Eric Bledsoe are both better than Danny Green and Kyle Kuzma. So maybe that is a bidding war the Bucks could win, but what if the team looking for that trade is like a Denver, and they're willing to give up Gary Harris and Monte Morris and first round picks? Like, I don't think the Bucks can outdo that. So I just think this whole path is really unlikely. I don't think that the Bucks will be able to make a big trade for a big name player. Maybe the highest level guy they could make a trade for this offseason would be someone like Aaron Gordon, but that doesn't make sense because of his positional fit. Some other guys on that level that have been in trade rumors would be like Karis LeVert, but what do the Bucks have that the Nets are going to want to trade Karis LeVert for? I mean, I could see them doing it for Middleton, Karis LeVert, first round picks, Jared Allen, and Spencer Dinwiddie for Chris Middleton. I mean, do we trade Middleton? I don't think so. I think Middleton's far too good to be traded. But an offer like that would be special. I don't know. I'm going to have to do a lot more thinking about this Bucks offseason. There will probably be another video that comes out about this and all of this trade. Maybe just a Bucks trades possibilities video. But we'll move on to my other possible routes that Giannis could take this offseason. Number 3 would be don't sign the Supermax. Bucks don't think they're a championship contender. Take the Pelicans with Anthony Davis route and trade him. I hope it doesn't come to that because I would hate to see Giannis get traded, like I said. Hasn't been a Bucks player of his caliber for 50 years. I don't think there will be for another 50. So hopefully we can hang on to him. But otherwise, there's only a few teams I could think of that I would want to make that trade to. One being the team we just lost to, Miami. If they give up like Tyler Hero and Bam, I could see that happening, or that being something I'd be willing to do if I was the Bucks. The Raptors, if they would give up Siakam and Anunoby and first round picks, like this Giannis deal, if Giannis gets traded, it will be the greatest trade package in NBA history that the Bucks will be receiving back, because this guy is incredible. He's flat out incredible. And look what the Pelicans got for Anthony Davis. Giannis is a level above Anthony Davis in my mind. So I think they'd have to get a better deal than the Pelicans got for Anthony Davis. I think that when they're looking to make a trade, that's what they're comparing it to. So I really hope it doesn't come to that. I don't think it will come to that. I don't think the Bucks will be trading Giannis this offseason. So we'll move on to the fourth and maybe the most likely road of action. Giannis doesn't sign the supermax, and the Bucks run it back. And that scares me to death, because we saw how that went this season. Not very well. Second round exit. This team makes me nervous. The best case scenario is Giannis signs the supermax. If Giannis signs the supermax, we can all rest easy. But if he doesn't, this is going to be a very scary next couple of months for every Bucks fan. Pretty much a scary next year until free agency and he makes his decision if he doesn't re-sign this offseason. It all comes down to Giannis with this team. I guess I could talk about their draft pick a little bit. I'd like to see them draft Malachi Flynn from San Diego State. That's my guy with this 24th pick. Him or Desmond Bane, because as we saw in this playoff series, the Bucks could use a little more shooting. Desmond Bane is probably the best shooter in this draft. So if those are my two guys I want the Bucks to draft, Desmond Bane or Malachi Flynn. But really, this offseason is all about Giannis. We need to convince him to sign that supermax, otherwise it's big trouble. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think Giannis is going to do and what you think the Bucks should do moving forward, because I personally really don't know. I hope he re-signs. I hope to God that Giannis signs that supermax this offseason, because otherwise this is going to be a scary time for all Bucks fans. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. That's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you all again very soon.